How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3. The last episode, I don't think I can sum up very well, and I think I said this very recently, but this one is for real. Like, wow, did a lot happen. But I'm going to try here, because I think even I need to look back and kind of reconsider everything that has occurred, because it all came really fast, and I have still not been able to really soak it all in, because a lot of it really is just straight up horrifying. So to start, we were taking Sotoko to the clinic because she was literally boiling in a bathtub, about to be involved practically in a stew, and we found out that the coach decided to commit suicide for whatever reason. You know, we don't exactly know his reason. And that, I think, is something we should keep in mind. Obviously, Keiichi's going to think that he has these divine powers where anytime he wishes someone was dead, they will die. I think it's a coincidence. Not exactly sure what happened with Ueshi-san, because we overheard the cops talking about how they were searching for his car. And that can really mean anything, but there was a tip that implied that something happened whenever he was trying to search up a plate, or get a plate searched up. So after that, we went up to the shrine, and we found that Rika had been killed. Not exactly sure how, and she was killed because she was laid in such a specific spot with her gut cut open and her entrails pulled on out. So someone did that. And then Sotoko thought that we were the killer, assumed that Oyashiro-sama had possessed Keiichi, which, by the way, I was told is very, familiar. That's something that happened in Chapter 2 with Keiichi believing that Mion was possessed or some shit. And then we got pushed off a bridge. And I think we're at the bottom of said bridge. That is why we can hear water running. I think that's everything that happened in the last episode. I feel like a lot more happened, that there was just so much going on. I don't even know fully everything that has happened myself. My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold, too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue or red, or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I dropped from there, it was a miracle that I can open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken, upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I had failed to die, and I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked like only 1 or 2 hours had passed. But my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short a time had gone by. Mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep for a decade. The more feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic, brought memories back one after another, memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Sotoko was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now. And she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, and get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find out for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me? Or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You can boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I'm surprised we're able to stand. That's the real miracle. I went downstream and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid, there was no wind, and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I'd been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. Why burned eggs? And then, at last, I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow and many leaves were spread on the ground, despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to spot a few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses, scattered all around like a child had collected them as samples and then strewn them about. So, remember when Keiichi wished that, this whole insane world would be the next to die if he had this ability to wish upon the death of whatever? Well, if we're following that weird-ass logic of he can do whatever the hell he wants with this power, and that there is a power, I think everyone in the village is dead. Which I really don't understand. The stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burned eggs, combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet it felt like I was sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa was silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, and I saw the school. And finally I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trunks. It was hot and humid even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat and with such a stench about. I go, well, there are people here, so what is going on? They were taking colorful cargo out of the truck and lining it up in the schoolyard. There were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy too, and they were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several dozens, hundreds of tuna were completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke, It wasn't the same burned egg smell as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. And then certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces? What? Self-defense forces like the army? Why was the army in the schoolyard?
Oi, kimi, doko kara haitte kita?
Suddenly, someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around and a canopied SDF Jeep was parked there. The SDF person had a green raincoat and a gas mask like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through the masks, but they seemed surprised.
君はHinamizawaの住民か？住所と名前は言えるか？
一応ここに住んでますけど、名前は前原圭一です。あ、住所は鹿骨市Hinamizawa村。
After seeing me tell them my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the Jeep started talking into a radio.
本部、応答願います。本部、応答願います。402生存者発見。
Oh. Okay, maybe I was predicting this correctly.
繰り返す。402生存者発見。場所は営林署入り口前。
This is base we copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status?
生存者は健在。全身に外傷を認められるも、生命に支障なし。自立歩行可能。これより保護し、本部へ送致します。
I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF? I couldn't help but think it seemed a little bit much. They urged me into the back of the Jeep, and then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask.
すみません。何かあったんですか?
Yeah, I think something did happen. I'm pretty sure we've been asleep for a little bit.
君はどこにいたんだ? 何をしていたんだ?
Sorry, I was getting a drink. Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you.
ずっと山に入ったところにある吊り橋から落っこちて河原で多分気絶してました。今日が何曜日かもよくわからないです。
今日は昭和58年の6月22日。
Okay.
水曜日だ。
That surprised me. Sadako pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday, the 21st. And that meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. And like, nothing attacked us? I guess everything in the village really did die.
改めて聞きますけど、何があったんですか? なんで自衛隊が来てるんです? 何かの訓練ですか?
Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat, talking on his own radio, turned on the vehicles. He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started to listen to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with,
より首相官邸で行われました。記者団からの自衛隊の災害出動が迅速に行われなかったことが前例のない未曾有の大災害に直結したのではないかとの質問に対し、奥野官房長官は次のようにコメントしました。
でありまして、県知事からの派遣要請を受けて迅速に対応したものと思っております。
と、このように述べ、要請を受けてからの自衛隊の出動は迅速であった。むしろ県側の事態把握に遅れがあった可能性を示唆しました。そもそも自衛隊の派遣を要請した県知事は、災害発生から前例のない大災害であることをいつ認識できたのか、そして 災害派遣要請までにいわゆるお役所的なロスタイムが生じ、被害の拡大を招いたのではないか、今後の究明が待たれています。首相官邸より報道部の尾形記者がお送りしました。さて、ここでもう一度災害発生からの行政の対応を振り返ります。
In the middle of the night between June 21st and June 22nd, alright, here's some music. Sounds very familiar, it's, a little bit of a different pitch. A large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details have not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was afflicted. With most of the residents asleep, it is thought that all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. But there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okonomiya sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls, but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. Well, that's
非常に
tragic.
悔やまれています。この時点で警察か消防への連絡があったなら、事態はもっと改善されていた可能性が高いでしょう。少なくとも村全滅という惨劇は免れた可能性があります。
6 a.m. Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with a patrol call on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations of prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief, was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late.
近年市民団体によって指摘されていますが、議員待遇者との視察旅行は完全に親睦を目的にしたもので、主演三昧だと噂されています。近い筋の話では、知事は徹夜で飲んだくれて泥酔状態で就寝していたそうです。環境部長から電話があった時も泥酔していて、全く取り合ってもらえなかったのだそうです。
And so the authorities, in the hour or so it took for the governor to grasp the situation and sober up, did nothing but accumulate information.
知事は言うに及びませんが、知事不在時には本部長を務めることになる環境部長にも怠慢の責任が問われるでしょう。また、県としても大災害を想定したマニュアルが用意されておらず、対応が常に後手に回ってしまったのが致命的でした。
9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak.
とにかく深夜の就寝中というのが不運でした。同じ災害でも日中に起こっていれば全く違ったでしょう。
All the households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but the results are predicted to only increase that number.
スタジオにはゲストとして火山性の災害にお詳しい地学博士の藤原先生にお越しいただいております。先生、このような恐ろしい6月が突然湧き出すようなことはあるのでしょうか。
火口部に限定して申し上げれば決して珍しいことではありません。火山大国日本にはたくさんの活火山がありますが、 それらの加工部はいずれも危険なガスの噴出する危険性があり、一般登山者も加工部周辺には立ち入らないのが一般的です。
では今回南沢村を襲った卵のフランシュのするガスというのも加工部では一般的なガスということですか？
卵のフランシュという特徴から、おそらく火山ガスの中でも事故例の多い硫化水素によるものだと考えられます。高い濃度であれば非常に危険なものです。
Yeah,
南沢村
That's
は
probably
火
what this
山
was.
の加工部とは全く縁遠い場所にあるわけですが、そういった加工部でない場所にもその硫化水素が発生することがあるのでしょうか？
詳しいことが分かっていないので、まだはっきりとしたことは申し上げられませんが、外国の例で温泉の地下のマグマだまりからガスが噴出したという記録があります。極めて希少な例ですが、必ずしも加工部でなくても発生の可能性はあるということです。
先生、ありがとうございました。今防衛庁から発表があった模様です。防衛庁の森川さん。
はい、防衛庁です。先ほど防衛庁は南沢村ガス災害の主原因となった火山性ガスについて、陸上自衛隊科学学校での分析の結果、二酸化炭素と硫化水素の混合ガスによるものだったと発表しました。
森川さん、そのガスは依然として噴出を続け、周囲に拡大しているのでしょうか？
現在、南沢村で救助活動に入っている自衛隊第9師団の報告として、ガスの濃度は徐々に薄まりつつある。これ以上の被害の拡大はないと発表しました。
Oh, how convenient.
ですが依然、南沢村地区は危険な状態にあることには変わりなく、今後も注意深く監視を続ける必要があるようです。
防衛庁から報道部の森川記者がお伝えしました。続きまして、避難を余儀なくされている沖宮地区住民の模様をリポートします。現在避難所の一つとなっている下篠崎小学校に報道部の現地記者がお伝えいたします。
I think we lost it there.
何ですかそれ？
Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night. Where was Hinamizawa village anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I'd heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out? What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many died? Or how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually, we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole side outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher.
もう大丈夫だよ。具合は歩けるかい？
歩けます。あ、痛い。
And because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio.
外傷多数、骨折もしくは内臓損傷の可能性大。頭部に大きな裂傷。瞳孔正常。眼底に出血なくも脳内損傷の可能性は否定できず。
And then from the clinic's entrance, people lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought out the stretchers in front of a truck. Two troops holding shoulders and legs, like some kind of baggage, picked them up and threw them into the trunk. In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage, and they told me they were already nothing but shells. That's still really horrifying to see. At that moment, I remembered all those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses. Corpses, corpses, corpses. I think we get the idea here. Come on now. Yeah, corpses.
バカ！ 犠牲者を粗末に扱うな。彼は村の住民だぞ。
The troops carrying the sacks answered with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish, again, it was granted. Yeah, of course it was gonna seem like that. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and then it happened the next day. Then please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night, it's still going on. Please, please end it already. Well, I mean, if we wished it, that means we're gonna die.
意識が損失したぞ。患者の名前を呼びかけろ。早く。
前原くん、聞こえるかい？聞こえるなら瞬きでいいからしてくれ。前原くん、前原くん、前原くん。
Suddenly, the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their cries.
呼吸が停止したぞ。気道確保。人工呼吸。絶対に行かせ。畜生。畜生。もうこれ以上死者はごめんだぞ。死んでもいい命なんかないんだ。殺すな。殺すな。
I could hear the voice of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from his heart. They were so commonplace, and they soaked into my heart too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Sodoko. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy, then this is a little much, Oyashiro-sama. Why? Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Sodoko said something. Oyashiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first, but kills everyone they love before that. Oyashiro-sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end, that it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious, but last of all I realized one thing. Yeah, today I had not heard those footsteps following me, even once, and now I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. Their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. And we got an achievement for that, Liberation. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone, whatever prefecture, excuse me. Volcanic gas, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide erupted from Onigafuchi Swamp, one of the Hinamizawa area's water sources, and spread through the entire village. There were 1,200 victims, 20 have gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. Holy shit. That's fucking nuts. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were uncovered directly under Onigafuchi Swamp, and the gas that gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming this disaster was a curse based in Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There were apparently local legends of a curse spreading a miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remained part of these legends. More extreme periodicals suggested that this was an extension of the string of freak death incidents that had been happening in recent years in Hinamizawa village, stirring interest in theories about this curse of Oyashiro-sama. In addition, relatives of those in Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them even died of unknown causes, further encouraging such extreme opinions. On top of that, several relatives professing to be possessed by Oyashiro-sama's curse committed suicide in strange ways. And the impact the disaster has had on the entire nation can no longer be ignored. Wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night, killing people, spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headache, dizziness, etc. Some who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were mistakenly attributed by the tabloid press, but afterwards some even began to call the mental issues arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa Syndrome. Ooh. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. God damn. The prohibition was at one point undone as a result of a decrease in the gas's density, but that autumn, another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being cordoned off again. Word is that the area is sound asleep, all traces of its former life intact and left to rot. That's fucking sad, actually. Wow. Only one survivor remains, Keiichi Maibara, a teenager who lived at whatever Hinamizawa village. At the time of rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs, but as a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. Wow. Are we actually going to survive this chapter? He is currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press has been asking for him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between June 21st and June 22nd in Hinamizawa village? And today he remains quiet or silent, unwilling to speak of it. Well, shit. Oh. Great Hinamizawa disaster. What the fuck? Oh my god. Oh my god. Went missing on an investigation. That's Ueshi. Possibly committed suicide. The coach, Rike Furude, possibly murdered at the shrine. And then this is just everyone. Holy shit, they have a full-on list of everybody. The uncle went missing on the 22nd. Same thing with Sodoko. They're missing. Okay. This is all really just happening so quick. Shion committed suicide on the 27th. And then Keiichi. I think these are all characters that we know, but still. What the fuck? This is weird. What? Oh, okay, these are the credits. Okay, I'm like, what is happening? Okay. That was a weird and interesting way to lead into the credits, but I will take it. That kind of surprised me, I guess. Wow, I'm gonna have to look back at the credits, or before the credits, and see the other names, because that was happening so fast, at least to me, because I was trying to, read what stood out to me that I didn't read the other stuff. Yeah, I don't recognize the names immediately, so I'll have to go back and see what happened to the others. That seemed very important to know what happened there. Damn, Shion also can just not catch a break, by the way. She had her issue in Chapter 2, whatever fuckiness, I should say, happened there. Somewhere in June 2003. Wow, we really skipped forward in time. Yeah, Shion just cannot catch a break. She's always dying somehow, huh? An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago. Their son went missing when his fishing boat capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they had begun to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds and came across the cassette tape in question. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experienced working as a journalist for a photography periodical, and this tape is thought to have been created during that time. The label on the tape read 11/28/1983, Keiichi Maibara. It is thought the tape was recorded during an interview with Keiichi Maibara, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. And therefore, The tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. Are we going to listen to the tape? Yes, we
なんだ
are.
か録音されてると思うとすごく喋りにくいですね。
Alrighty. And this is of the same year, right? 83?
気にしない気にしない。ほら、こうすれば録音してるのも気にならないでしょ。
After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he cover the recording device with something?
じゃあ始めるね。
Oh yeah, that's muffled.
まず最初の質問から。圭一君はあの大災害の夜どこにいたのかな。
神社から裏に抜けてずっと林道を進んで吊り橋があるんですよ。山に入る少し前にそこから落ちて気を失ってました。
それは大災害の夜、つまり21日から22日にかけての深夜のこと？
いえ、21日の火曜日の朝です。それで次の日の昼間に目を覚ましたわけですから1日半はそこで気を失ってたと思います。
どうしてそんなところに？誰もが持つ疑問だけど、当日は平日で、しかも落ちた橋は君の家と学校からは大きく離れているよね。ざっくばらんに言って、君が大災害の発生を事前に知っていて、村から逃げる途中に吊り橋から落ちたんじゃないかっていう声もあるんだけど。
冗談じゃないです。勝手なことを言わないでください。
私も随分ひどい言い分だと思うよ。
Well, rumors are gonna be rumoring.
気を悪くしないでね。さて、次に圭一君が落ちたという吊り橋なんだけど、地図で言うとここだよね。神社の裏から林道を抜けて至る吊り橋というのは。
多分、俺もあんまり行かないところなので、自信はないですが。
そんなに行かないところに、どうして平日の朝に行ったのか、疑問は尽きないけどな。それで、この君が気絶していたという河原なんだけど、実はそれはありえないという噂は知っているかい？
Oh, there's our favorite word, impossible.
ありえない。また、ありえないですか。まだ。
For a little while, Keiichi Maibara mutters the word impossible several times.
どうしてありえないと？
火山ガスが発生したのは鬼ヶ淵という沼なのは知ってるよね。それで学者の先生が緻密な模型を使ってシミュレーションをしたら興味深いことが分かったんだってさ。例の火山ガスってのは空気よりも重いらしくて、地形に沿って低いところへ流れ込む水みたいな性質があるんだってさ。それで発生源の鬼ヶ淵沼からそういうガスが噴出し、どれくらいの時間をかけて村を覆うのか実験がされたんだ。そしたらさ、君が気絶していたという河原、流れ込むんだよ、ガスが。
よく言ってる意味がわからないんですが。
つまり、君が本当にこの河原で気絶していたなら、君は丸一晩、猛毒の火山ガスの中にいたことになるんだよ。だからつまり、君がここで気絶をしていた可能性は否定されたわけさ。もっとざっくばらんに言うよ。私はね、君が嘘をついているんじゃないかなって思うんだ。君は大災害の時、安全なところに身を潜めていて、ガスが薄れた頃合いを見計らって村に現れて自衛隊の人に保護された。どうかな？図星かな？
For a short time, the journalist presses Keiichi Maibara further in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs. I mean, he just said, yeah, what a terrible thing to think, but it's right, you know.
別に仮にそうだったとしても俺は今更驚きませんけどね。
驚かないとはどういう意味だい？
Was this recording really taken of Keiichi Maibara? Some harbor suspicions. What the fuck?
ありえないって、あのひなみ沢ではありえないことなんていくらでも起こるんです。死んだはずの人が生きてる。そんなこと珍しいことじゃないんですよ。まさか俺自身が死んだはずなのに生きているってやつを立証しようとはね。
The journalist and Keiichi Maibara both laugh for a while. To verify its authenticity, I had the others in the Maibara family check the tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear, and much time had passed, so the relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually his voice.
あの大災害がHinamizawa連続開始事件の5年目のたたりではないかという話についてはどう思う？
いや、それはないですね。5年目のたたりは俺ですから。
え？何のこと？
何のことって、あんたの話に対する答えですよ。
Doubts also remain regarding the date 11/28 written on the tape.
まあ、言っても信じないでしょうけど、俺が起こしたんです。俺がね、こんな村、丸ごと死んじまえって願ったから。
そりゃ、豪快な話だね。
豪快？そういう面白い言い方もあるんですね。
After Maibara Keiichi's, or Keiichi Maibara's, failed suicide attempt on a certain August day 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility.
あの時の俺にはね、何か神がかり的な力が宿ってたんですよ。そう。例えるなら、足音かな。
足音？って、なんだいそれ。
あんた、足音を聞いたこともないんですか？ペタペタ、ひたひた。
The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it's extremely unlikely that a tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have his voice on it. I mean, the date could be wrong.
それでね、自分がちゃんと立ち止まったにもかかわらず、足音が一つ余計に聞こえたなら、気をつけた方がいいですよ。
そうだね。気をつけるようにするよ。
そんなに俺、面白いこと話してますか？
However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active, so there is a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Keiichi Maibara to talk.
監督と同じだ。俺のことを同情したり、話を聞いたりしてるふりをしながら、その実、人のことを異常者扱いしてる目だ。
そんなことはないよ。
いや、俺にはわかるんです。あんたの目は監督と同じだ。
Is this truly Keiichi Maibara's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I mean, we know it's his, or at least I'm pretty damn sure. It kind of aligns with everything that, went down.
だから俺にはもう、あんな恐ろしい力は残ってないだろうけど、今ここでもう一度、あんたの死を願ってみるよ。俺に不愉快な話ばかりをする。あんたの死を。そうだな。今回は一つ、死に方も決めてみようかな。高野さんは焼け死にだったから。じゃああんたは逆に水だ。水に溺れて死ぬってのはどうだい
15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Keiichi Maibara had predicted, died in an accident out on the sea. Oh my god.
さてあんたは何日後に水で死ぬかな
Our poor crazy fellow.
あんたも気をつけろよ。俺ごときにたたり殺されるな。
Don't go getting yourself killed by some stupid curse I put on you, okay? It's hard to read when it's all spaced out like that. The recording ends in the middle of Keiichi Maibara's laughter. And Keiichi Maibara... Yeah? Go on. Late on the night of 11/30, 1983, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from a high fever, cause unknown. Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. An extra set of footsteps.
また一つ余計に。
Oh. Playing with that fire again, Keiichi. Is that it? Are we done? Why? I don't like that. Why do we gotta hear that every fucking time? I'm pretty sure we've heard that every time, right? I try to push it out of my memory. And for good reason. I don't want to hear that shit. Alrighty, all cast review session. We'll go through that and then we'll end the episode. But before this, I want to state my thoughts because if I go into this beforehand, my opinions will probably change. I will get thrown into a cesspool of opinions that weren't originally mine. I'll have different ideas. I don't want those ideas. I want my own ideas. Okay, well actually let's go back to the main menu. Yeah, so everybody was right. All of you saying that this was the craziest and the hardest to understand. I mean, the game said it was the hardest to understand. At a point, I actually could not follow what was happening. Straight up, I have no idea what has happened. No idea what happened with Rika-chan and how she even got involved in a lot of this shit. No idea what happened to Sodoko there at the end. No idea what happened to the others. Why Rena and Mion were both being like their Chapter 1 weird-ass selves. No idea what happened to Ueshi-san, to the coach, to this divine power that Keiichi believes he has. Why there was apparently a second Keiichi. What were those footsteps that was brought up in Chapter 1 apparently, being brought back into this and having much more of a solid appearance, it seems. Just, what happened? What happened to Sodoko's uncle? What happened on that night? What happened going forward? There's just so many unknowns here. I don't even know how they could all connect. How everything could connect here. I am at a absolute loss. So I hope y'all are happy about that one because your boy is definitely confused. No idea really where this could go. What the actual answers are on this one because holy fuck. If there is some sort of suspicious power out there, it's definitely latching on to Keiichi. It definitely seems to be the case where things start to go awry after the night of Watanagashi. It's always after. Sure, things were getting a little crazy before the night of Watanagashi in this chapter specifically, but on that night and going forward, everything gets unexplainable. Like, I cannot help but just get straight up confused as to what is supposed to be happening. It's just, there's just too much unknown. Too many questionable things happening with no answers, with no sort of connections whatsoever. Absolutely confuzzling. So, I don't know. Guess I'll just have to keep a lot of these questions in my mind. I have absolutely no predictions at this point, other than it could be some sort of weird force like Oyashiro-sama, an actual being beyond humanity that is latching on to Keiichi, like I said. I strongly believe that Keiichi begins to go a little nutso after the Watanagashi festival. Maybe even a little bit beforehand this time around. Or maybe he was always just a little crazy. We got a little bit of a sneak peek into his life, into his past in this one. However, it only showed us that he's a smart guy, but under certain circumstances, if he's interested in something, he will put effort. Okay. But there's a whole lot more to learn about Keiichi. He's still a very open book. What more about his past do we not know that could help us understand why events go the way they do here. And I believe that is a big key because we just don't know. Can we really trust the perspective that we have been given since the very beginning of Chapter 1? Can we really believe everything we see, hear, and go through with Keiichi? I don't know anymore. I don't. Getting huge-ass, wonderful everyday vibes because without really spoiling too much of that, you go through everything with false pretenses for like the majority of the goddamn game. So I feel like that could also be going on here. I don't know. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts as long as, you know, you don't spoil anything. But I don't know. How far could I be off? Don't tell me. I'm probably very far off. Okay, guys, I actually went back here on the footage because I'd like to read out the names of those that are seemingly important that died or went missing due to the Great Hinamizawa disaster. And you can tell with Rena's name at the top there that some of the names are spelled differently than how we're used to seeing them in the visual novel. I don't even know what language is used for the bottom text on each bullet point, but let's take a look at these real quick. So Rena, Mion, and Oreo Sonozaki, I think that was Mion's grandmother, or somebody in the Sonozaki family. They all died on the 22nd, okay. Soriko and her uncle went missing. And the thing is, with her uncle, we don't exactly know what happened to him. We never saw him on the 21st. Did he actually go missing on the 22nd? That's when it was reported. We don't really know. And scrolling down here a little bit, so we have the Maibaras. I'm assuming those are Keiichi's parents. They died. They're most definitely gone. Same thing with Tomita and Okumura-kun. Sucks that they're no longer around. Died in an accident was Chie Rumiko while fleeing. So she was actually on her way out. But on the same day, she died in an accident. I wonder what the details are there. And Kimiyoshi, who the fuck is that? Is that one of the officers? I can't remember. That seems... Hichiro Kimiyoshi, that seems like such a familiar name. Why am I blanking on it? Well, anyways, he's dead. And then Kamida died in an accident while fleeing as well. Who's that? Why does that name also seem familiar? Yukikazu, that doesn't sound familiar. But the Kamida, that sounds familiar. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. And I think that's everybody. Nope, there's more. There's more as I'm scrolling down here. I'm just playing the video footage. Okay, so there's Tatsuyoshi Kasai, died at the victim's hospital in August. So there was somebody that made it pretty damn far, but I guess eventually died. I don't even know who that is. Shion Sonozaki, I brought this up. She committed suicide. Not sure what happened there. It says investigation concluded, so... why she committed suicide, I'm not entirely sure. And then it says that Keiichi attempted suicide and that he was diagnosed with a severe mental disorder due to the disaster and undergoing long-term treatment at a prefectural facility, has refused all interview requests by the media, and is living his days in peace. But then we found out that he later did commit suicide, supposedly. I don't think that's actually what went down. He heard the footsteps, remember that, and he did actually do an interview. But this does confirm that, yes, he did apparently go into a mental facility sometime in August. So I think that's everything. As I scroll down here, I believe the rest are credits. And yep, that is exactly the case. So good to go back on this. Let's go through the all-cast review session to end off this tragedy with a little bit of lightheartedness.
この度も日暮の泣く頃に水たたり殺しを最後までお楽しみいただき誠にありがとうございました。これまでのシナリオとは少し違う雰囲気でお送りしましたがいかがだったでしょうか。
Yeah, it did.
お楽しみいただけたなら幸いです。
今回も胸のすくようなバッドエンドだったわね。私個人としては大災害が実際に起こった時の惨劇の描写も欲しかったところだけど
I'm kind of happy with the way that it went down. You know, just confusing, like it had happened while we were knocked out. You know, who knows, maybe something else actually happened to everybody and that was a cover-up.
そんなわけありませんでしたよ。またしても大バッドエンドあれれ、バッドエンドって割にはみーちゃんは楽しそうだね。
Cause she wasn't at fault this time.
っていうか、もう笑うしかないってのが本音でしょうね。
なははは。毎回嫌な割り方がエスカレートすると思ったら、とうとうここまで行き着いちゃったわけですからね。
みんな仲良しで死んじゃったのですよ。仲良しなのです。ニパ
そういう見方もあるのかな。毎回死んでる僕はもうごめんだな。
Well, at this point, I just expect it. Like, I don't doubt that you're going to die in every chapter going forward now. You will die every time.
たまには死なずにエンドを迎えたいね。
富武さんって時報みたいな役割なんですよね。富武さんが死んだら、あ、後半戦突入だ
Pretty much, actually.
みたいな。
Well, that's loud.
さて、ではここで今回の会合に改めてご参加いただく皆さんです。拍手でお迎えください。まずは監督こと入江京介さん。
ご紹介に預かりまして光栄です。どうも脇役だったわけですが、トータルで見てみるとかなり美味しい役だったなぁなんて思ってます。
本当ですわね。脇役にしては出番もセリフも多すぎで、しかもキャラが強すぎましたよ。
今後どれだけ出番があるかは分かりませんが、その説は応援よろしくお願いしますね。
I expect we'll see more of him. I feel like he's important, and he has been important.
ありがとうございました。では次に我らが担任、知恵ルミ子先生。
Well, she's been here in the other chapters,
皆
though.
さんどうもこんにちは。いろいろと登場シーンもあったのですが、今回カレー勝負で目立つシーンをいただきまして。
But the Curry Showdown was in the last chapter.
カレーをバカにする人は許せません。ええ。
Wait, was it in this one? I don't remember anymore.
誰もバカになんてしていませんよ。あ、知恵先生に席を空けてあげてください。
Wait. Was there a Curry Showdown? Wait, what was the Curry Showdown? Was it her destroying us because we went in and told her that we don't like curry or whatever? Was that it? That was this chapter.
さて、
I don't remember anything anymore. All this crazy shit just gets brought up and I just get sucked into it.
これでとりあえず全員揃ったね。レナ、また乾杯をよろしくね。
では皆さん、各卓のコップをお持ちになってください。お飲み物はいろいろありますよ。
本当にお疲れ様会も賑やかになりましたね。今何人ぐらいいるんです？
私たちを加えて多分10人くらいはいると思います。
未成年人と成年人の人数比がこれでやっと互角かな。これで胸を張ってアルコールが飲めるね。
ビールってなんで冷えてるとあんなに美味しいのに、ぬるくなるとあんなにまずくなるのかしら。七不思議の一つよね。
なんででしょうね。
さあビールを継ぎますよ。12345あれ、大人は6人でしたっけ？
僕も泡麦茶がいいのです。リカちゃんもお酒はダメ。
Nah, let her drink. It'd be
では
funny.
レナさん、そろそろお願いします。
はいはい、皆さんご清聴ですわよ。では皆さん、日暮らしの泣く頃に水たたり殺し、本当にお疲れ様でした。乾杯。
せーの、
乾杯。
That's also loud. Yay! Clap, clap, clap.
さ て。では毎回恒例の今回のシナリオ議論でもやってみますかね。
What can even be discussed here? Everything just went fucking downhill. It wasn't even a slope this time. It just went down.
とは言ったものの、今回のシナリオもケムに巻かれっぱなし。
Sorry if you heard that noise. That was my drink.
意見のある方は挙手をお願いしますね。
お、みんな慎重。挙手ないね。
じゃあ私が先陣を切ろうかしら。申し訳ないんだけど、音楽を変えてもらってもいいかしら。
Oh, does it have to be creepy?
もう少しミステリアスな感じの。
Oh, perfect.
ああ、これがいいわね。
ムードが出まくりなのです。では、高野さん、お願いします。
I think this is the first time that the music has not been cheerful here.
多分ね、たたり殺しのシナリオだけを吟味しても謎は解けないんじゃないかと思うの。
そりゃ同感だね。ここまで物語が重なればそういう仕掛けがあることは明白だしね。
そんな仕掛けありましたかしら。
これが正しい例かはわからないけど、鬼隠しで前原くんが大石さんとレストランで食事をして、それが園崎さんに知られていて不思議だったってくだりがありますよね。
鬼隠しだけだと実に不思議な出来事ですけど、綿流しを読めば別に不思議でも何でもないことがわかります。
Yeah, Shion saw it and spread it over to Mion.
劇中の私が入ったレストランは園崎系列の店だったということですね。園崎一族はこの辺りの飲食店やら何やらを経営しているわけですから。
で、ケイちゃんの顔を知る者があの店にいて、それを私に伝えたと考えれば比較的筋は通るでしょ。そういうことだね。
日暮の物語は微細に異なる場所もありますけど、大筋の設定においては多分4つのシナリオは共通していると思います。例えばキャラクター設定。
鬼隠しのレナは怖い人だけど、それは鬼隠しだけの設定ということじゃなくて、レナはレナで4つのシナリオに全く変わらない設定で出演しているということですね。
全く変わらない設定というのは同感。僕がどのシナリオでも常に同じ場所で同じ死に方をするのはその最たるものだね。
Oh, hell yeah.
どんな物語になっても必ず同じ日に死にますですよ。
綿流し編でお祭りの最中に高野さんと富武さんが西宮殿に忍び込むというシーンがありますけど、あのシーンも他のシナリオでは描かれなかっただけで起こったことになっているのかもしれませんね。
I think someone mentioned that in the comments of an earlier episode, and I get it, but it also makes you wonder, okay, if that's actually happening, was the lock also in the same, like, easy to break or disarm or get rid of fashion that is because of Rika? Would that also lead to her having to die?
なっているそうです。綿流し当日のお天気や部活の内容、里子のおじさんの帰宅など、いくつかのイベントを除けばほとんどが共通するそうです。
だとすると新しい疑問がいくつか湧きますね。全く同じ環境で語られる物語なのに、なぜああも違う物語に派生するのか。
一般的なサスペンスアドベンチャーの視点で考えると、物語が派生する分岐点が存在したってことになりますね。
Oh, but no choices were made here, buddy.
綿流しで言うと、お姉に人形を渡した、あるいは渡さなかったというあたり。あんな序盤の選択肢1個でバッド確定とは恐ろしい選択肢だね。
では、たたり殺しに話を戻しますと、この場合ですと、おじを殺そうと決意するあたりですかしら。
I mean, if you don't decide to kill him, what happens then?
私はずっとそれ以前、同居人の女性がトラブルで失踪して叔父がひなみ沢に帰ってくることになったあたりからもう分岐しちゃってると思うわね。
では一番最初の鬼隠しの分岐はどこなのですか？
やはり劇中の私が登場してお社様のたたりに関する連続開始事件のことを話すあたりからだと思いますね。
今思ったんですけれど、ちゃんと圭一さんがミオンさんの気持ちを理解して、それで大石さんも私のおじさんも現れなかったら何も起こらずに平和に過ごせるってことなんじゃありませんの？
So something must have happened prior.
さとこにしちゃ本質ズバリじゃないのよ。
There had to have been other choices made in order for disaster to strike.
確かに言えて
る。じゃあこの暗い物語は大石さんとおじさんが現れないことを祈りつつ、園崎さんのご機嫌を損ねないようにすればみんな幸せになれるということなのかしら。
イエーイ、おねえバッドエンド要員。みんな気をつけてね。おねえの機嫌を損ねるとバッドエンド確定ですよ。何よそれ。シオン、あんたには次は容赦なく痛い目見させてやるからね。泣いた謝ったって許してやるもんか。待てこら
これまでの物語の謎は全然解けないけど、どうやったらこの物語が大団円で終わるかのグッドエンドの推理はできちゃいましたね。
Yeah, good enough for me.
本当にそれで幸せになれるんでしょうか。大石さんと北条哲平さんの不登場、ミオンさんのお人形の件、本当にそれさえ気をつければいいんですかね。
そうそう、みんなは一つ大きな最後を忘れてるよ。hinamizawa大災害という天災を忘れたかい？
天災は防ぎようがないですわよ。村のみんなにガスマスクを配って引っ越しでもしますの？
あれはきっとお社様のたたりなのです。だからお社様を怒らせないようにしなければならないのですよ。
なははは、ややこしい話になってきましたね。つまりお社様も怒らせてはダメと。お社様を怒らせないためにはどうすればいいのでしたっけ？
ダムの計画そのものがきっとダメなんでしょうね。ダム計画がそもそもなければよかったんじゃないでしょうか。
That would help.
それは難しいわよね。だとしたらお怒りになったお社様を鎮める儀式が必要ね。
鬼ヶ淵の沼に捧げ物を鎮めるあの儀式ですね。
捧げ物って何をお社様に捧げるって言うんですか？
そりゃあ決まってるでしょう。どんな分岐にも関係なく話の流れから脱落が確定している人だよ。どうせ死ぬならhinamizawaのための人柱になってもらわなくちゃね。
Oh, poor Tomatake.
ああ、その脱落が確定している人ってやっぱり僕のことかな。
やっぱり二郎さんはこの物語に欠かせない重要な役割の人だと信じてたわ。お役目を立派に果たしてちょうだいね。
You know, I'm pretty sure that she actually killed him.
これで今度こそグッドエンドの大団円シナリオの青写真ができましたね。
Maybe?
せっかくだからちょっとやってみましょうか。役者は全員揃ってることですしね。
What, are we gonna try and act this all out? First, we stop Uncle Hojo, whose lover ran out on him, and from returning to Hinamizawa.
いやー、私が北条おじですよ。はいはーい、行き場をなくしてロンリーブルー。早くhinamizawaに帰ってさとこちゃんをお持ち帰りしてじっくり教育。未来はご奉仕メイドですよ。では ひなみざわにバイクで帰りますか。キーを入れてカチッとカチッ。
Oh, it just blows up. Alright, and we just kill him. We just straight up kill him.
廃人に規制でございますわよ。さとこちゃん、火薬の量多すぎじゃないかな。
Next, we stop Ueshi from showing up.
今度は私ですか。私の名前はクラウド大石。ジャジーでブルースな感じがだいぶイケてるナイスミドルですよ。
Oh my god.
成敗なのです。
そして忘れちゃいけないのがお姉へのアフターフォロー。
Please don't tell me we're blowing up the goddamn
ささ
toy.
お姉、可愛らしいお人形さんですよ。よかったでちゅね。
なんだか納得いかない。
で、最後にお社様の怒りを鎮めなくちゃならないと。
では最後のお役目よろしくね。
Into the swamp you go.
踏んじばってすまきにして吊るして3日かけて沈めるんでしたっけ。
面倒くさいですからここは一気にいっちゃいましょう。
ガボガボガボガボガボ。
これにて一件落着。
Oh, if only it were that simple. If only. That'd be nice, actually.
なんでかな。突然レナの腕が光ってうなって大変なことに。獅子類類で大変なことになってますのです。
Are we calling Keiichi like we always tend to do?
あれ、電話だ。
Or maybe Keiichi's calling us.
あ、ケイチくん、お疲れ様です。
おうおう、相変わらず大盛り上がりみたいじゃねえか。こっちは次回の台本読みで相変わらず忙しいってのに。まあいいや、今日の俺は機嫌がいいから嫌味はなしにしてやるぜ。シオンはいるか。もう行っちまってもいいんじゃないか。あれ
今ここで発表しちゃうんですか。とはいえもうすでに分かってる人たちもいるでしょうけど、まあいいか。
シオンさんとケイイチさんの二人っきりの秘密ですって。何よそれ。聞いてない。
Oh, okay. There's no line here. Okay, Keijan, let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. The main character of the next story will be Shion Sonozaki. Ah.
まあつまりはそういうことです。初登場以来ダントツの人気ナンバーワン。姉妹キャラでも遅れ登場した片割れの方が絶対に人気が出るってのはギャルゲー全盛時代から決められたお約束ですし。
わけわかんねえことはどうでもいいよ。とにかく俺はそのシナリオでは主人公のお役ごめん。風の噂じゃ俺のボイスを超えてるとか。へっへん。俺の苦労を。
Nope, did not mean to cut you off there,
ケイちゃんのボイス数は
Keiichi.
異常ですから、他のシナリオに入れるようになればすぐに逆転されるでしょうけど、まあ園崎姉妹の実力ってやつをとくと皆さんにお見せして差し上げますよ。
でもいいんですの、シオンさん。主人公は毎回ろくでもない最後を迎えると決まってましたよ。
まあこれまではね。でもね、次回からは必ずしもそうはならないんですよね。
日暮の泣く頃に水も今回のたたり殺しと外伝の染め写しで一区切り。ミステリアスな謎を次々と提示してきた出題編はここで折り返しになり、次の章からはこれまでの謎に挑み、そしてさらなるドラマの幕開けとなります。
I think people actually call it the, this was the question arc, now we're jumping into the answer arc.
つまり私が名探偵になって理不尽な謎をバスバス解決していく痛快ストーリーなわけです。今のうちから決め台詞を考えておかないとね。あなたを みたいな。
納得いかない納得いかない。
御三家の秘密に近づきすぎて閉じ込められていたぶられて、悲惨な最後を遂げる役に決まってる。
お姉こそ私に全ての謎と秘密をカンパされて謝罪の言葉を口にしながら自害なされる心の準備は OK です。
お社様のたたりの可能性はなしなのですか？
さて、そのしーちゃんが主役の目明かしに進むためには新しい警察資料が必要です。はじめからを選んでゲームを開始すると主人公にシオンが追加されているので、それを選んで進めてください。
Really glad she got loud for that.
鬼隠し、綿流し、そしてたたり殺し、この3つのシナリオを重ね透かして皆さんにはどんな真実が見えてくるでしょうか。
推理はまとまるどころかますます煙に巻かれていくだけ。レナも全然わからないです。
For all of you warriors who never yielded to these 3 mysteries and kept on fighting, we present you with one final scenario as thanks for your enthusiasm, one which we never originally planned on giving to you. Please enjoy it. What? Okay, I'm actually confused about something, but I'll bring that up in a moment. I don't know if something's coming up here. I don't know what that line was about. Low-key, a little confused there. Oh, whatever. Okay, cool. Tight. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, so, is there anything else going on there? Why was it... What was that line? That was weird. Okay, so, I guess to end this off, I should mention that I think the next chapter is still in the questions arc, actually. I think they had planned the next one to just be going into the answers arc or whatever, but I think the next one is Rika's story. I remember seeing her sprite, that's it, or portrait as they were calling it, on the title card for that one on Steam. I have all the games ready to go, I think through Chapter 8, which I think is all that's available on the mainline series. And I don't think Shion's comes up until Chapter 5, which I believe is the start of the Answers arc. So, not sure what the next one will be about, but it would make sense for the next one to be about Rika, which I'm worried about, because it seems like every chapter we learn a little bit more about Rika-chan, and probably not in a good way. In this one, she obviously met a very unfortunate death. We found out that she was, quote-unquote, tortured, or I guess, abused for being blamed for going into the storehouse. And there was one more thing. Oh yeah, that whole deal that she might be the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama. So there's also that lovely bit. I don't know. I think that might be the next one. But whatever the next one is, I hope you will all join me in for that one. I think it'll be a lot of fun to jump into that one. And I think after that one, as much as I'll want to take a break, I probably won't. I don't want to burn myself on this. I really want to keep going, but I also don't want to burn myself out. We'll see what goes on in terms of jumping into the Answers arc, because I really would like some sort of explanations to start coming out. I know when with Wonderful Everyday, I brought that up earlier. Again, not to give any spoilers out, but towards the latter portion of the game, I would say like 60 to 70% in, is when you finally jump away from these false pretense perspectives, and not all of them were, but you start to get an idea as to what is actually going on, which threw a bunch of my predictions out the fucking window. And I feel like that might be the same thing here, especially since Shion mentioned that she will be the main character, and not Keiichi, which means we'll follow her a completely different perspective. Will that be beneficial for us? I have no idea. Regardless, and again, I hope you all will join me in for the continuations of the Higurashi series here on my channel. I thank you all for joining me for Chapter 3. It was a lot of fun. I even did a couple of these episodes here at the end, live. I don't know if I'll continue to do that as we go forward, but quite a few people joined in for that. and I think it was successful. A way to show off the episodes as I record them, and then just throw up the episodes once I've done all my editing or whatever I need to do the next day. Just a little sneak peek, if you will. I don't know if I'll continue to do that, but it was fun to try that out coming to the end here. And the last one I did was the previous episode. So yeah, having people come in to see that was pretty interesting. That whole scene with Rika. Wow. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Was a lot of fun here with Chapter 3. A fucking ride. I am still dumbfounded in so many regards, but I hope you all had a blast with my reactions and going through this yourself. First time or going through this again with me. Hope you had fun either way. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in Chapter 4, whatever that will be called. See you guys then. Take it easy.